Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Taylor Chapman, and in this episode, I'm hanging out with Sam Westfall, a military veteran and passionate bow hunter. After being medically retired from the Army following a debilitating leg injury as a tank mechanic, Sam struggled to find his place. It wasn't until he found archery that he started to experience the vivaciousness of life again. Sam also goes on to tell us about one of his bear hunts, as well as why he made the morally driven decision to switch from rifle hunting to bow hunting. This is the Veterans Voice Podcast, and this is a reminder that you're not alone. Sam Westfall, welcome to the Veterans Voice Podcast.
Thanks, Taylor.
How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Pretty awesome. I like your energy.
It's going to be a fun day.
We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about your military career a little bit. You're a veteran. And then we're going to talk about a healing modality that you found to help, kind of transition out of the military into the civilian world, which is outdoors, archery, and hunting.
Correct.
Where do you want to start?
Let's go down the entrepreneur path, since that's where you started.
Yeah, let's do it. So yeah, you're a veteran, and then kind of went into the entrepreneurship sector. How did that start for you?
Actually, let's back up.
Okay.
So let's pivot that over. So my time in the Army was a tank mechanic.
Okay.
M1 Abrams, 63 kilos, served 7 years, got crushed by a tank.
Mm-hmm.
That ended my military career kind of abruptly.
Crushed by a tank? What do you mean?
So if you think about two tanks, one dead, one live, we were going to drag the dead tank with the live tank using a 5-inch, 250-pound tow bar. We were shorthanded, but we needed to make it happen because that's what we do in the Army is we make stuff happen. So I decided I'll ruck up, and I grabbed a hold of the tow bar. We'd hooked it up to the dead tank, and I'd laid the tow bar across my left leg, supporting the weight of that 250-pound tow bar, while the live tank backed up. Tow panel on the back of the live tank, tow bar, I should have went like that. 600-degree exhaust blowing in my face. I missed. It did like that, and 72 tons worth of tank and tow bar continued to back up across my leg.
Man.
So it crushed all the muscles in my thigh flat. It dislocated my hip, dislocated my knee, dropped me like a sack of potatoes, and then caused an immense level of pain.
Was anyone there with you?
I had one guy that was standing just outside that watched it happen, and he was the ground guide on the one side. There was a ground guide up at the front of the tank, and then the driver. And like I said, we probably should add 2 to 3 more people, but we were in a hurry, needed to get it done. Here we are.
Yeah. So you were sitting there for a second.
I laid there for about 20 minutes before they decided they could grab a medic and move me.
Man.
Tank had already moved forward. I was out of the clear, wasn't in any danger. It was just a lot of pain. Medic came over, realized that things were not where they were supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So they put me in an ambulance, drove me over to Evans Medical Center here on Fort Carson. The doc took a look. They did a bunch of x-rays, said, yeah, we can put this back together. It's going to hurt. We're just give you some cortisone shots to lube everything up. And then they very ungently put everything back in place.
Man.
So
you were about 6 years in at this point?
Yeah.
In the military?
Yep.
How did that feel? You were telling me before you joined at 17.
Joined at 17 and a half.
Every intention to do 20.
Do 20.
So, you have 2 big dilemmas here, this huge injury and your career change. Let's talk about both.
Well, I didn't realize that there was a career change just yet. Right at that point in time, I just knew that I was hurt and things were not happy.
Right.
So I did 9 months worth of physical therapy and rehab, trying to build everything back up. Even 9 months in, still dealing with pain. The muscles were not cooperating as far as regeneration, or physical therapy wasn't necessarily helping the way that everybody thought it would. So the Army said we had one more option, and that was to do exploratory surgery. Now, we say exploratory surgery, so it's my leg, exploratory surgery, and Army doctors. And I said, you know what? What's our other option?
Yeah.
Because that wasn't really a good option.
It's funny now.
It's hysterical now.
Yeah. Geez. You opted out of that.
Yep. So They said, well, if you opt out of that, unfortunately, that means we're going to medically separate you. That's where the career change came to happen. And that's where things started, in some ways, to go sideways, because now there's a stress of separation. There's an anxiety of separation because I've had this steady paycheck for the last 6 years. There's a level of depression because I'm in pain. I've already got, not really sure of there's a lot of unknown in moving out to the civilian world. What's this going to look like? How's the VA going to take care of me? Because at the time, the VA wasn't the same as it is today.
Right.
So there was just a lot of unknown. And then there was just the PTS of still dealing with that incident. So things didn't go very well. Ended up getting a divorce about 2 months after I got medically separated, which put me in a really downward spiral.
Yeah, man.
Dropped deep down into alcoholism. So I decided to go, okay, let's go back to something that I know that I can put myself in a mindset, which was firearms, because I was doing competitive firearms before I went in. And severe alcoholism, loneliness, stress, anxiety, depression, PTS. Then you add firearms. It's probably not the best scenario all around.
No.
So tried to go in through the VA. Like I said, at the time, the VA was not nearly as helpful or supportive. They tried to put me on a whole bunch of different drugs that were not necessarily helpful. Some of them made it worse, almost to the point of suicidal. So I stepped away from those, gave them all back, and said, you can keep those and I'll figure out another way. So over the years, I've stepped back away from the alcoholism. In the last 15 years, I've walked away from the firearm space almost completely. And that was because a buddy of mine grabbed a hold of me and said, hey, look, when you go to the gun range, whether it's competition or you just go into play, for the next 3 or 4 or 5 days after the fact, you're kind of a jackass. And I didn't realize why. And so I had to do some introspective, looking at it and trying to figure it out. And we talked about it a couple times. He went to the range with me trying to help understand it. And after 2 or 3 rounds of that, he finally put a bow in my hand. He said, just shut up and try it. Okay. So I grabbed the bow and I knocked an arrow and he kind of showed me what I was doing. And the instant I drew that bowstring back, all the voices, all the noises, anything around me went quiet. Kind of like this room. And then when I let that arrow go, a little bit of stress, anxiety, depression, PTS, all went out with that arrow. I'd never really experienced that. I said, all right, give me another one. Let's try that again. Let's see if it does the same thing. Sure enough. So that was 15 years ago. I've used archery as my therapy for the last 15 years now. Haven't really gone back to the firearm space, but that kind of catches you to somewhat where we are today.
Right.
Into the entrepreneur space, when I got out of the Army, couldn't really be a tank mechanic because there's not really a civilian market for that. So I went into an IT career, 20, almost 23 years long. I started as a help desk working from Northrop Grumman. I worked my way all the way up to a senior manager of endpoint systems here at Credit Union here in town. Different IT spaces, different companies, moved up to Washington State, worked up there in IT for a number of years. But over those years, transitioning from firearms to archery, transitioning in that IT space, something was still missing, and that was that veterans have a tendency to work at a different pace than what the civilian world does. Not necessarily good or bad, but for me, being in the IT space, I want to, hey, if we've identified a problem, let's go solve the problem. If we get another problem, let's go fix that one. And not everybody wants to play in that same level of fix and go and move on to the next thing. So there was always something missing. And it became that entrepreneurial space of how do I do this on my own pace, working for my own thing. I'm not making somebody else a bunch of money. Let's try to make that money for me. Let's try to free up my time so that I can do more things that I want to do, go hunting, spend time at the archery range, kind of, and build that camaraderie around that. And so I walked away from a 23-year-long IT career and started Archery in Motion, which is the moving target business, because again, in that archery space, I got bored shooting stationary targets. Wanted something that I could use to help build and increase my opportunities for hunting season. So started Archery in Motion, took it across the country for a year and a half, 16 major archery events, almost 300,000 bow hunters put an arrow into moving targets, got to experience it. Didn't make me a millionaire yet. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But what I realized in all of that in going to those different events was that there's a component missing for the military and veteran space, and that nobody was really kind of showcasing what archery as therapy could be for that military and veteran space.
Right.
So I started Valor Archery Challenge to help incorporate the moving target and kind of build into that. And now we're going to see where that goes for me.
Okay. There's a couple things I want to unfold here.
Yeah,
that was a huge spiel just kind of rewinding a little bit back to your transition out of the military. There's a lot of things that happened during that time in your life, and it's very common for veterans to get out of the military, not after being crushed by a tank, but a similar circumstance. You know, I joined at 18, 20, early in life, and I have every intention of doing 20 years, and then something happens. And whether you get med boarded or injured or life takes you in a different direction, some people get chaptered, life changed. So I just kind of want to go into your mindset and how you overcame this huge obstacle, both the injury and the transition out of the military.
So let's do the focus on the transition first.
Yeah.
In 2001, there was not a lot of resources like there are today, right? Mount Carmel didn't even really exist at that point. Wounded Warrior Project didn't exist at that point. The VA had some level of transition.
Mm-hmm.
Fort Carson had a TAPS program that was 2 days long, and that's really all you got.
Right.
So really, once I separated from the military, congratulations, you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left, it was you don't really take any of your military friends and any of those resources or connections with you because they've already moved on and they're already on to the next deployment. Especially in 2001, as things kicked off, guys were going overseas, and that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah, quite the time to get out.
It was. So that was very much a struggle, and trying to figure out how to make new friends that don't necessarily have the same sense of humor that veterans have.
Right. Now I'm offensive and all this other crazy stuff.
Right. So it was very much a struggle.
Right.
And it took the gun range was probably the closest place that I could find somewhat like-minded people, but not necessarily, because gun range has a lot more ego. You're not really having the conversations. You're always wearing earmuffs. It's just not that interactive. So for a number of years, it was very much a solo Sam experience to try and figure out how to overcome some of these things. Hunting has always been a component in my life. And so I always look forward to hunting season, spend the time up in the woods, lost in the woods occasionally, and getting that time back in nature and in the outdoors was always helpful in bringing everything back down to a mellow level.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my focus towards the year of, okay, so August or April, May timeframe, I'm putting in submitting for tags. May, June, July timeframe, I'm figuring out what those tags are. July, August, at that point in time, I was going to the gun range and putting rounds down range to make sure my rifle was zeroed and ready to rock and roll. I was in the mindset of full-on workouts to be able to hike the mountain with a pack on and go chase down some of these critters. September, October were hunting season. Then you get into November, December, January, which is bird hunting, whether it's ducks, geese, whatever the case may be. And then come February, you start that process all over again.
Right.
So it was keeping that mind focused towards hunting in whatever way that I could. The alcoholism diminished over the years just because of my current wife is awesome, and she helps bring me down to a mellow state. So I didn't need as much alcohol. So that's even better.
Yeah. So hunting was there as soon as you got out.
Yeah.
As soon as you got out of the military, hunting was your purpose.
Hunting was still there even while I was in.
Okay.
The first couple of years were pretty rough trying to figure out how to use the muscles that weren't there anymore and how to go hike a mountain, get in that 8 to 10,000 foot elevation range with a leg that's didn't need drugged along, but it didn't necessarily have all the muscle strength as the other leg to be able to hike it. So
right.
Over the years, that's gotten better. It's gotten easier, and I've been able to adapt. But the first couple of years were rough.
Yeah. So maybe, getting out of the military, this was a pretty substantial circumstance. Other than hunting, did you have any other kind of outlets or purpose that really helped push you along?
Like I said, most of my friends walked away most of my friend group was focused in the military. Mm-hmm. And then what wasn't focused in the military was I lost in the divorce, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a rough go for a few years. I got into jeeping, off-road jeeping for a number of years. That was okay, but it's still a solo adventure.
Right.
And that's just a money pit.
Yeah. Yeah. But a fun one.
It is.
So how did alcoholism kind of slip in, if you don't mind talking about it?
So alcoholism, the Army doesn't discourage folks from drinking because they realize that at some point you need some type of outlet. And
right.
I can't say that they discourage it. They don't encourage it, but they don't discourage it either. So that was the one thing that I knew that I can make, if I go to the bar, I can make friends because of alcohol. Again, probably not the best case, not the best scenario, but here we are. That was the one thing that I knew that I could go meet somebody at a bar. And sure enough, that's how it played out. A few nights were blackout drunk where I still have no memory of what or who or anything else. That's, like I said, that's diminished over the years. You and I met socially at a veteran beer club here in town. That night I had 2 beers, and that was the extent of what I've had. Now that it's after June 1st, I'm sober for 3 days now.
Yeah. Which we'll get into why. It's super interesting. So was there like a breakthrough moment? Was there kind of, you had to learn the hard way type situation? How did you kind of
never got into any trouble? No DUIs, nothing along that nature. Like I said, current wife is phenomenal in that she's got to the point where if she has 1 beer, she gets the hangover before she even gets the buzz.
I'm the same way.
So with her having that type of almost migraine type headache with it, it's helped to me not go out and drink.
Right.
So now if I go to a veteran beer club, I have 2, that's my limit. We're all done. Life's good. And that's really, it's social more than necessary.
For sure. So you kind of just didn't see the need for it anymore.
Yeah. It got too damn expensive.
Yeah, that's true. $7 a beer for 8 beers a night or something at a bar.
Yeah.
That's expensive.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into entrepreneurship then. Okay. So I know you had that corporate job for a long time, but how did you kind of slip into entrepreneurship? How did you decide to leave and go into doing your own thing?
That was really a decision. Wife and I had said, we'd talked for a number of years that I would want to be able to open my own indoor archery range at some point. Okay, well, we can't afford that yet. You need to find investors. You need to have the right background. You need to find the right people that are willing to invest in that. And I didn't have that at that point. Well, what I can do is start the moving target business just to see if that can build traction and build a name and build some recognition around Sam as an archery expert. And it worked. Like I said, I was getting phone calls from events to say, hey, can you bring your moving target to this event to incorporate it into our event? Because we saw what you're doing. We like the social media. We see where this can be beneficial from a training perspective or from a novelty perspective. Well, in that first year, I said, okay, I have no idea. I know how to come to terms with it. I know how to be a good soldier and make stuff get done, but I don't know how to run my own business. And so that got into kind of all those entrepreneurship programs that I mentioned: Warrior Rising, DAV Patriot Bootcamp, IVMF, Rosie Network, Boots to Business, VBOC, and started to go down that path of saying, okay, I need to go to each of these events, each of these programs, and say, what's the nugget that I can learn from you on how to be a successful or even semi-successful business owner? Granted, most of them have no idea what to do in the archery space, but I took away one little beneficial nugget out of each one. And that was, okay, so I can do this. I can make this work. I've got enough determination and grit that I can overcome almost any obstacle. So when there's bad days in the archery, in an entrepreneurial space, thankfully I work in my stress reliever is also my business.
Yeah, that's good.
So I can go to the archery range, sling some arrows. And
good idea to start a business around your passion.
That's the key part.
Yeah.
Find something you can do, find something you can enjoy, and find something you can make money off. And they all have to be the same thing.
Yeah.
But when I take the camera out or I take the phone out and I shoot videos, well, now that time at the archery range is now a tax deduction because it's part of the business that goes to social media. So it not only is it stress relieving, but it's content, and it all kinds of builds into the same momentum.
Right. Okay.
So
early on, did you feel that the military helped you or set you up for success, or kind of set you up for failure to become an entrepreneur?
When I got out of the military, I'd never even considered being an entrepreneur.
Right.
So that wasn't even in the mindset. But what I did take away from the military is that grit, determination, and okay, whatever it takes to get this done, let's just do it. And it doesn't matter if it's a 20-hour day, because we've all done that. It doesn't matter if it's working overnights or weekends, because in IT, I've done more than my share of those nights as well. So putting time to it, saying, okay, I can make this happen, put a plan around it. And then, like you said, find something that fits the passion that you can make money off of, and let's roll with it and see where it lands. I still have a good plan with Archery in Motion, starting in the archery space, bringing it to different events, taking it, kind of selling it to different archery ranges. The end goal for that one is at some point being able to sell it back to the military, because 100-yard wireless control on a moving target, military can benefit from that too.
Absolutely.
It's much different than the little green pop-up targets that pop up, you shoot, they lay right back down.
Right.
But if you look at those ranges, you can tell where the bullets have hit every time.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if it's moving back and forth, now it's a whole different world.
Yeah.
So it simulates what the Bradleys, the tanks, the 113s, the 50 cals and everything else shoot at.
I see.
Where it's a moving target.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the military is so full of structure and organization and leadership and chains of command. When you become an entrepreneur, you're all of that for yourself.
Very
so if
much
you
so.
say you're going to, this week I really need to find a building to lease to start my business. If Friday comes and you don't do it, there's no one holding you accountable. So did you kind of have this battle at all?
There are days where I wake up in the morning, whether it's 3 o'clock in the morning, whether it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and okay, the goal for today is blah. Let's make it happen. And some days I'll hit all those goals, and other days I'll hit 80% of those goals, and the other 20%, you go, you know what? The rest of it was a success. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have full days. You're going to have empty days. And there are a few days where it's just been a rough day where I wake up and nothing's working right. Nothing's playing in the sandbox right. And you go, I'm just going to go to the range and just go shoot because I have to get some of this temperament, anger, frustration out, or nothing else is going to line up. And go shoot for a couple hours, come back, and I can be far more productive in the rest of the day than I would have ever been if I just tried to fight my way through it.
Oh, I see. So do you have any advice on keeping yourself accountable in this entrepreneurship endeavor?
So one, have an outlet. And, if your outlet is part of your business, that's even better. But finding that outlet, being able to take the time for that outlet. Yes, your business is 100% of your time. Even when I'm at the archery range slinging arrows because I'm frustrated, I'm still thinking about the things that I need to get done. But having that time at the range, bringing it back down to calm, to zen, to be able to focus. And I've had some phenomenal ideas at the archery range while I was shooting.
Yeah, I know you said you're not a millionaire yet, but I would still say you're a successful entrepreneur. What would you go back and tell your younger self as an entrepreneur now, knowing the wisdom and intelligence and experience you have?
2 things. One, don't try to bootstrap it. Go find an investor, find a bank that wants to work with you. Spend the time developing your business plan because that's what's going to truly make you successful. 2, have that outlet early on. Find people that you can go have the deep conversations with. So even if you're having a bad day, somebody that I can walk up to and go, I'm not awesome today. It's shit. And they can help talk you off that ledge or talk you back into the saddle, whichever that is. Right. So finding those 2 focal points, 1 that's going to carry your business forward, 2 that gives you an opportunity to vent and step back in.
Would you have started sooner?
Probably. Yeah.
Why?
It's been an idea on the plate for probably 10 plus years. That's 10 years I lost in trying to make it successful. So now I'm playing catch up.
Yeah. That's kind of that self-accountability thing. That's kind of where I was going with that. Because just like in the military, you have people who are going to get you in trouble, or you're going to have a bad NCOER, or you're going to get a counseling statement. Outside of the military, you don't have any of that. So if you don't do something, you kind of just start building up this like moral dissonance almost because, I want to do this, but I'm not doing it. Did you ever have that kind of start to build up where you should have been doing something, you didn't, now you have this kind of internal dialogue?
As an entrepreneur, you get that sometimes on an hourly basis, sometimes on a daily basis, or on a weekly basis. Again, it's that as an entrepreneur, it's the ultra highs and the ultra lows.
Right.
And you have hourly, daily, weekly, doesn't matter. Figure out that outlet so that you can figure out how to overcome it and step around it.
Yeah. I feel like it'd be easy to always feel like you're not doing enough.
Oh, very much so. Very, very much so.
How do you deal with that?
My first year was 16 to 20 hour days. Just, I've got to do everything I can do to make this successful. This last year, it was, I've got to do everything I can do to make it successful. And I still have to be engaged with my wife and not get divorced because that's just not going to benefit me either. So figuring out that happy midpoint of I've got to my 80% or I've got to my 100% of my goals for the day, walk away at that point. Don't try to add anything new. Just walk away, call it a day, and move on to go spend time with family. Yeah.
Your current wife, has she kind of been around through this whole process, or how important has that been?
Huge. 100% supportive the whole way through. There are days where I just look at her and said, please tell me I'm crazy. And she goes, no, you're not. This is going to work. You just have to give it time.
Yeah.
And so, having that level of support has been absolutely huge. Thankfully, working in IT for 20 years, I had a decent buildup of fundage that I could just work off of. So we're almost 3 years in now, and I've still got probably another year or better to survive off of.
Mhm.
But she's also working on IT as well. So she makes a decent amount of money. She helps cover a lot of the we cut our bills way down. So she helps cover a lot of it. But to have that level of support so I can just truly focus on what do I need to do. And if I need to spend this money to go buy this next thing that'll help with the business, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for kind of nurturing a marriage during such difficult pursuits?
Make sure it's solid before you get started.
Yeah.
And have the open conversations.
Right.
Right. That's like I said, I look at her at least weekly and I need you to tell me if I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not crazy. It's going to work. Just go do it.
Yeah. So she's kind of your sounding board.
She was. I went through SCORE program as well. SCORE is another entrepreneurial mentoring program. And just shy of a year, I went through 4 different SCORE mentors. The first one, I thought there was something wrong. So he worked with me. Pat's still a great person. Absolutely enjoyed working with him. But after about 2.5 months, he goes, Sam, I can't work with you anymore. And what did I do wrong? He said, no, it's not that you did anything wrong. He goes, you are outpacing every other entrepreneur that I work with. You have this under control. You just need to go focus on it. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right. I must have screwed something up, right? So I got another one. Waited a couple weeks, reached out, had a new mentor handed off to me. And all the SCORE mentors are volunteers. And so worked with that one for about 3 weeks. And he goes, Sam, stop. You've got this. You just need to go do it. You need to give it a little bit of time. He said, there's nothing that I can say you need to go work on this thing or, you need to improve here. You've got this. You just need to go do it. Again, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right. I must have pissed him off. I must have done something wrong. Nope. After the third one, I went, no, I'm just going to go do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's, all right, ruck up. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hang on for the ride.
So what do you think the friction is? Is it just because it's kind of uncharted territory or?
For me, it's not trusting in the first couple. It was not trusting in myself.
Yeah.
Not, because I've never done this. I had no idea what to expect. I have no idea what to measure against. Well, it's got to be me, right? No, I just didn't have enough trust and belief in myself to actually chase it.
Mm-hmm. So how do you think you've kind of changed that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's just all right.
Mm-hmm.
Now I, question my sanity to make sure it's still going to work.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got this idea. And my wife goes, yeah, it's logical. It's sound. You've got a plan around it. Just go do it.
Yeah.
Give it time.
Well, with any new endeavor, it's almost like you have to start building confidence by making decisions.
Yep.
But those initial decisions you might not have the answer to yet. So it's scary. So
Yeah,
you have
very
to,
much so.
Yeah, you have to see these decisions play out and it might not work. It might work. And then, if it doesn't work, you adjust accordingly. If it does work, you're building that confidence.
Yep.
Do you kind of resonate with that?
Very much so. And kind of go back to, build that business plan early and make it deep. So when I started up Valor Archery Challenge, I went to the bank and I said, here's my business plan, and it's 26 pages deep. And that I bought, right? So the banker that I was talking to, she goes, Sam, I got people that walk in here asking for $2.5-3 million on a 2-page business plan. You've answered every question here. She goes, I'll write you the check today.
Huh.
I went, oh. She goes, what you've built is detailed. It's thorough. It builds on itself. Every page adds to the next question or the next level of answer. She goes, but again, we got guys that walk in here $2.5-3 million worth of ask on a 2-page business plan, and it just has half the numbers. It doesn't say how it gets there, what the differentiators are, who the partners are, who the sponsors are, anything like that. She goes, you did your time, you did your due diligence with it. You brought us something that's substantial. Yeah, we can absolutely do that. Goes back to my point of build your business plan first, because that's what's going to help pull you the rest of the way.
There's a little nugget here I want to touch on. That's something I have zero experience with, but writing a business plan and requesting a loan from a bank. Do you mind talking about that process a little bit?
Sure. It's really, really intimidating.
Really? Yeah, that's kind of why I want you to expand on it. Because I'm sure there's a lot of veterans out there going to the entrepreneurship realm. Part of that is funding. Like you said, you can either get investors or you can bootstrap it. But, getting a loan from a bank is an easy option. It's kind of the go-to option. So how did you go about it?
I wouldn't say it's easier. Finding an investor that's willing to partner with you can be easier in the long run. Finding a bank that wants to work with you, you've got to have your numbers and they've got to understand it. So to take an archery business that most people don't understand and be able to build a business plan that they can look at and go, yeah, this makes sense. Your numbers look logical. You've accommodated for, X participants equal this. Here's the merchandise fees. Here's the funding fees. Here's your initial expense fees. Here's your, insurance and that type of thing. It was all laid out, and it made sense of, here's my starting point of what I want to do. And I wrapped it up with, here's what it could be 3 years from now. And a whole bunch of money sitting in a bank account, and Sam's off hunting 9 months of the year.
Yeah.
It's a rough life. We're not there yet.
Right. Huh. But so did it kind of work out, or?
So far Valor is less than a year old. We've already had 4 events. It's building on itself after every event. I got another one here in a week and a half. So, really just building on it and getting enough word of mouth going around it to make it make sense. Those that have attended, those that I've talked to in the military, it makes sense. They understand it logically. They want to see how it plays out, and I can appreciate that. Basically, what I kept telling people is, come shoot. Then you'll see it. You'll understand where the difference in archery as a therapy is different than going to the gun range.
Well, let's segue into it. The business itself, and then I kind of want to rewind and go into the healing aspect of it. So, what is Valor Archery Challenge?
So, 3D event designed for the military and veteran community, bringing the veteran service organizations to the plate, so that if you don't know where to go, right? You're transitioning out. You're not sure who those new friends are. You're not sure how to make those connections. Veteran Beer Club, Mount Carmel, VFW, American Legion, VA, all those I'm offering all of those different groups a booth for free so that you can make those connections as a military transitioning or veteran. The veteran hunting, fishing, outdoor organizations that exist, same thing. They get a booth for free because I want them to connect with the military and veteran community so that now you've got a resource of, if archery is not your way to heal, but hunting, fishing, or just the outdoors is, now you've got an instant connection. You don't have to go find them. I've already done all the legwork for you. Past that, it is putting the active military with a veteran or even a civilian to go shoot a 3D archery course. The level of camaraderie, community, and connection that you'll make in just going to shoot 25 targets is amazing, because you're going to be trash talking your whole way through, and you can actually have the conversation, unlike the gun range, where you're just out there to have fun and you're slinging arrows at animal targets that you may or may not have ever shot at. You may or may not have ever shot a bow before, but you're going to have fun. And then the shot scenarios, whether you're a brand new archer or whether you're an experienced bow hunter, the shot scenarios that I'm building are challenging enough for everybody so that you're going to just look and go, Sam, you're a jerk. And that's okay.
That's probably fun for you to set up.
It's an absolute blast, and probably one of my favorite pieces of it.
Yeah. So the healing aspect of it. So before we get into it, what is a healing mindset to you? Because there's millions of healing modalities out there, whether you're a veteran, civilian, it doesn't matter who you are. You can go heal in so many different ways these days,
Right.
But you have to be in the right mindset, and I'll kind of, branch off at you, but what does a healing mindset mean to you?
So for me, everybody has some level of trauma, right? Whether it's military trauma, civilian trauma, society, family, relationship level trauma at some level. And everybody's got to have an outlet. Some are positive, some are negative. Again, I've done the alcoholism, not necessarily the best way. I've done the firearms, again, not necessarily the best way.
Mixing them doesn't work?
Yeah, absolutely. But what I found is archery really does help. And just in the fact of it's calm, it's outdoors, you're enjoying, there's no connection, you're just out there slinging arrows. And when you put that with a bunch of people that are like-minded and you're out there to have fun, no egos involved, maybe a little bit of competition, but it's low-level competition, because I don't even issue scorecards at my event. I want you to just go shoot and have fun. So back to that mindset is you have to have an outlet. So find whatever that outlet is, whether it's equine therapy, underwater basket weaving, fly fishing, archery. Find that outlet that works for you and roll with it, because that's what's going to help you heal faster. When I had conversations with the VA, they wanted me to relive my experiences. And that played out kind of rough, because I looked at her and went, I don't want to relive it. I want to be able to move past that.
Like in traditional counseling type?
Yeah. I don't want to relive getting underneath that tank and being crushed.
Right.
That's not my happy place. That's why I keep having nightmares at night.
Mm-hmm.
I relive that every day. I don't need to have a conversation around it. Have a conversation here, no big deal. Have a conversation at the archery range, even less of a deal, right? Because now I've had that conversation. I can send that arrow and I'm instantly calmer. Mm-hmm. So it's just a different interaction. Mm-hmm. But finding that, whatever that healing mode is for you, sitting on top of a horse, sitting out in the water, fly fishing, whatever the case may be, find something.
Mm-hmm. So whether it's equine therapy, fishing, or in your case, archery, in your business, how do you recommend people go into it, with an open mind, or do they go in with a certain intention, or?
Be open about it, right? I had a buddy of mine that put a bow in my hand and I said, what is this going to do for me, right? Because I've been at the gun range. How is this any different? And he just said, shut up and try it. And that was all it took. There's a gentleman down here in Pueblo, has a really nice horse equine therapy ranch. Go in with an open mind. Jump. If you've never been on a horse before, yep, they're big, they're intimidating. But get up on the back of one and see if it helps you. Even before you get on the back, just stand there and just pet one.
Right.
Talk to it.
Exactly.
Right? Service dogs. It's that same type of thing. You have to have something that's tangible that you can interact with. But you have to have something, because if you just try to sit there and do it yourself in your own head, you'll never beat it.
Yeah. Yeah. You need other people's perspective for sure. USAA is celebrating over 100 years of service to our military community. In 1922, it was a group of soldiers that started USAA to insure each other's vehicles when no one else would. Since then, USAA has grown to over 13 million members strong, and through it all, one thing has remained. USAA is still serving the military community and their families. With their launch of Face the Fight Coalition to counter veteran suicide, we are proud to have USAA as a sponsor of the Veterans Voice podcast. Tell me about the psychology difference in a shooting range, like with rifles, gunpowder, bullets, versus an archery range.
For civilians or military or both?
Military, yeah. Okay. Well, both, but specifically military.
So for the military, we were all trained for one purpose. Doesn't matter which branch. Space Force might be a little different, but doesn't matter which branch. We're all trained for a purpose, right? And that's to take that firearm and go put a bullet down range into the enemy. Mm-hmm. If you go to the gun range after the fact, or even while you're still in, maybe even in transition, you're still putting that same bullet into a human silhouette. And in some cases, a lot of the guys that I've talked to over the last couple of years, that puts them back into a mindset that may or may not be beneficial for them. Right? You're now maybe reliving a scenario that you had while you were over in Iraq or Afghanistan. Probably not the best scenario. Again, that's not a good outlet for you. Same perspective. You got earmuffs on. You're not really having a conversation. And what I found at most gun ranges is it's very ego driven. Mm-hmm. Even if, especially at a competition, it is all ego driven. So change the mindset, take you to the archery range, a Valor Archery Challenge event, or a TAC event, or Western Hunt Fest, or whatever the case may be, and you're slinging an arrow. Again, no military connection because you didn't do that in the military. You're slinging an arrow at a foam animal target, whether it's a Yeti, a Bigfoot, a platypus, a porcupine, whatever the case may be. There's no neurological connection there. You're also not muffed up, so you're having a conversation. The trash talk is there. The level of interaction, is completely different. But when you pull that bowstring back, everything goes quiet. Mm-hmm. And that's the peaceful moment. It's just quiet, it's calm, it's zen, because there's so much focus that you need to do of holding that muscle back, keeping that bowstring pulled back, finding that sight, finding that pin, and finding that target down range. It's so different than when at the gun range where you just pull up a firearm, hit the trigger, and you're good to go. Mm. So much energy required and focus required to hold that bow. And the instant you hit that release and that arrow takes off in flight, now you got to, I don't want to say you watch because you don't ever watch the arrow go down range, but you get to see that little bit of stress, anxiety, depression, whatever the case may be, go out with it. And it's just calming over time.
I see. Because it's literally like tension releasing.
Yep.
Both in your body and in the
physically
actual
and
bow.
emotionally.
So,
yep.
Wow. Yeah, I never heard of this perspective really, but I relate to, I would claim that going to the shooting range calms me down, but it's the silence of the earmuffs, it's the noise of the gun, it's the chaos of it that we're used to from the military, and I totally understand how that's not healthy. Because now when I go home, it's like I'm sitting in my silent living room and I'm having a difficult time because
all those voices are rattling around.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Man, I need to try some archery.
Come sling some arrows with me.
Definitely. Well, let's get into hunting a little bit.
Okay.
So Just start with your annual routine going into hunting season, because you completely set me back with it.
Okay, fair enough. So 15 years ago, I changed over to bow hunting solely. When you're a rifle hunter, my last year rifle hunting as a for instance, was almost a 700-yard shot on a bull elk. So from the top of a ridge line down in across the valley into the next ridge, bull elk never even took a step. Had no idea what was ever sitting up there. But I went, it's not fair anymore. It's not fair chase anymore, right? So and again, that same period of time was when my buddy put the bow in my hand. And most bow hunters, anybody east of the Mississippi, their max shot is typically 30-ish yards, maybe 40, because deep trees, you're hunting from a tree stand, and that's really all you're going to get. Western hunting, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, we're doing spot and stalk. You're not necessarily in a tree stand, so you need to be able to take some of those longer shots, 50, 60 yards, but that doesn't happen easily. And most guys will practice 50, 60, 70 yards in general. So you're already closer to the animals. Being able to stalk up to that animal to get closer, though, without being winded, is a huge challenge. And after a couple of years of getting into bow hunting and realizing what it takes to be able to get closer to those animals, I figured, okay, there's a few things that I'm probably sweating out that those animals can smell, and it's not normal for them. So June 1st, I cut alcohol out of the equation and I take garlic out of my diet. Don't go out to eat. Nothing at home has garlic in it. Because when you sweat, go to the gym, and you walk by somebody that's super sweaty, one of the first things you'll smell is if they're heavy garlic eater. Mm-hmm. And that's the first thing that'll burn out.
Or an alcoholic.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the first two things that'll come out.
Right.
July 1st, I change it to where now those are both gone, but I take out anything deep fried. So now that fryer oil smell is gone. And that helps to drop body weight and kind of tone up a little bit. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, I'm working out through all of this. August 1st, I go vegetarian. No meat left in the diet. Mm-hmm. There's still some chicken in there, a little bit of shrimp, but not much.
Right.
There's no red meat. So by the time I hit September, now I've dropped somewhere between 18 to 25 pounds in fat, toned up, muscle content is a little bit higher. I'm now prepped for hunting season, and when I sweat, there's very little to nothing that those animals will smell. So I've been able to stock up to about 7 yards on mule deer.
Wow. 7 yards.
21 feet.
Man, you could smell them probably.
Pretty much.
Yeah, holy cow. How many years have you been doing this?
So I've been doing, this is year number 11 that I've changed my diet just for season.
Okay. People have a hard time sticking to a routine in general. So how do you maintain this year after year?
It's absolutely stupid.
Yeah.
Anybody that knows me, that's the first thing I tell them is I change my diet, and it's absolutely stupid. Yeah. But my goal is to fill the freezer every year with meat that I've hunted. That way, it costs less than my wife going to the grocery store and spending a whole bunch on red meat, because steak and hamburger right now is absolutely stupid priced.
For sure.
So, but if I can hunt it, now that's true, lean, healthy meat that we're putting in the freezer, and it's true, lean, healthy meat that I'm eating. And it, if you look at all the scores around cholesterol and everything else, hunted meat is always better for you than grass-fed beef.
Yeah.
Right. So knowing that that's my end goal is to be able to put that elk, that mule deer, that bear, that turkey, that pronghorn in the freezer, I got to do whatever I can, grit, determination, stubbornness, to change my diet so that I can improve those odds to be successful.
No, it's purpose driven. That's why. It's not to look good for others or post something on social media. It's because I have a purpose. I'm a hunter, and I need to put food on the table.
Correct.
That's impressive. What's your first meal when you're done? Do you have one usually?
Yes.
Yeah.
So very first thing as soon as something hits the ground, it gets harvested on site, because I'm a solo hunter. So that means I don't have 3 buddies to help me drag it out.
Oh yeah.
I'm cutting it all up on site, putting it in a pack. If it's a mule deer, it's usually a 1 pack out. So that's about 130 pound pack.
Man.
And off I go. If it's an elk, it's 5+ trips to haul an elk out. By the way, I'm 49 years old, so this isn't getting any easier year by year. But here we go. So the instant it gets home, by the time I get home, my wife's already got the kitchen all wrapped up in butcher paper. Now we're cutting it off the bone. We're getting it all processed. We'll get it in shrink bags, vacuum bags, and get it in the freezer. But while I'm in the middle of cutting all that meat up, she's over there being a wonderful wife and cooking up some backstrap steaks, little inch and a half thick, 2-inch thick backstrap steak. She'll get it all cut up and she just kind of feeds it to me while I'm cutting up meat. And that's the first meal after.
So you get the good stuff right away.
Yeah, right off the bat.
Nice. And so when you're done with your diet, do you have a first meal? Do you go back to like fried food with a beer? And,
it's everything.
Yeah.
As soon as hunting season's over, that wagon is destroyed and I'll see it again next year.
Man, that's funny. That's super impressive. 11 years to be following such a routine like that.
It's rigorous, but it does work.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me about, just to rewind a little bit, you shot that elk from 700 meters away and you started to decide that wasn't fair anymore. Tell me about that little moral dilemma that kind of led you to switch to archery.
Again, it was kind of all in that same window of time, right? So it was knowing that elk had no idea, never even heard the shot go off. It just round hit it and he stood up, looked around for a minute and then fell down. And for me, that was yay, great shot. Crap, now it's 700 yards away that I still have to hike to, down a hill, across a valley, up another hill. And that means 7 trips back and forth that way. A, it's hard on me. B, it's not necessarily fair to the animal. It didn't really give them a chance to fair chase, run. Right. So thinking about that going, there's got to be a different way. So even before I switched into the archery space, it was, well, maybe I go with a different round that can't carry out that far. Maybe I switched to a round that's 300 to 400 yards instead. And then I got into the archery space and went, okay, actually this works better for me because now I have to work harder diet-wise, health-wise, making sure I'm in better shape, especially as I get older, so that I can do this. Same point in time, I also transitioned from hunting with partners, hunting with buddies, to being a solo hunter, so that, hey, this is all me hiking it off the mountain, so I need to be in better shape in order to make sure that I'm not having a heart attack while I'm up there while I'm trying to hike this thing off.
Yeah. Do you stay out for days at a time?
Last year, I was out for 18 days during the month of September.
Just straight?
Pretty much. I think I was back for 2 days out of 18.
Okay. How do you feel when you're out there? Like you're out there hunting, you're 3 days into it, no one else is around you, you're just stalking, or maybe you're not even stalking something yet. But tell me about your mindset and your emotions when you're out there in the wilderness.
So start first with being out in the woods by yourself can be a very, very scary thing the first couple of times.
I mean, military, I think we love that in a way, but...
Right, but you've probably, when you went to the field, you were with buddies. You were with your unit, right? I'm up there with nothing.
Right.
So if something breaks a branch outside of my truck, I'm hearing it.
What was that?
What was it? Do I need to grab a headlamp? Do I need to grab a pistol? What was it? And those are the thoughts that go through your head. For me, still having sleep issues, if I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting there looking at the stars going, I'd love to be able to go back to sleep. It's too early for me to get up. It's too early for me to get ready. I need another hour worth of sleep before I start hiking the mountain though. So, it's all those pieces come into play. But being up there by myself, it's just calm. It's relaxing. And even sitting there 3 o'clock in the morning, listening to just the woods being the woods, the owls, the chipmunks, the squirrels, everything else just running around in the trees, whatever is making noise is just calm. And it's zen. 3-4 years ago, I was sitting on a water hole waiting for an elk to walk in. And I'd been there for probably 4.5, almost 5 hours without really moving. Just calm and comfortable. And I mean, even in here, I'm constantly moving. But up there, nothing moves. Mm-hmm. To the point where I had squirrels playing and running across my legs because they had no idea I was there. It was just part of nature.
Wow.
And so that was, very reassuring that this is working.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel overwhelmed when you come back to the city?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's noise and there's people and there's chaos and it's just a lot going on. Mm-hmm. So it takes me a day or two just to come back, transition from being in the woods by myself back into the dog, the cat, the wife, and, everything else that's going on. Okay, we get everything put away, we wrap it up, we call it good for that year, and then it's, now it's start planning for next year and how do I get, what do I need to do for the next round?
Yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of camping with my family, never like 18 days, but we'll do a 3-day camping trip pretty often. And it's always coming back on 24 into the city, you hear like your first loud Mustang, you hear people screaming at each other, your phone starts ringing. I'm just like, this is all so unnecessary.
Yeah.
I just get this overwhelming feeling that the buzz and the stress and the anxiety of the city is just so unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like people are just so tightly wound in the city.
Exactly. They're wound up.
Yeah. You just got to go release some tension.
That's right. just go hang out in the woods for a couple days.
Yeah.
And it's not for everybody. And I get that. And like I said, the first few times of solo camping in the middle of nowhere in the dark, it can be a very humbling experience, and that'll tell you whether you're ready or not.
Yeah. That's a good point. So what are you going to hunt this year? You said you just got your tags.
So I just got tags. First round draw was either sex elk and either sex bear. And I'll put back in for the secondary draw for deer and pronghorn. So
tell me about a bear hunt.
First bear hunt was very scary experience. I've never hunted bear. I always pull a tag, but it's always a target of opportunity. So in the event that I see one, great. Switching over to archery was the first time I really got interactive with bear. And I was telling you earlier, I was hiking up towards the top of the hill, ended up in a small berry field, natural wild berries that are up on the side of the hill. And I heard something grunt, and I look over, and there's this black mound moving through the berries. Oh, well, you're in range, and I've got a tag, and yeah, okay. And so I let an arrow fly, and he ran for about 45 yards and dropped and growled and death groaned. And I gave him another hour before I made sure, because I was, again, up there by yourself, you want to make sure the least amount of risk as possible.
Right.
So gave it an hour, made sure he was plenty dead, walked over. Yep, you're good. All right. That's a bear in the freezer. That's 200 pounds. So that was a win.
Wow.
And then hiking it out. All right. Yep, that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, being a bow hunter, what's like, you want to be within 80, 60?
I would say most bow hunters are comfortable 30 to 40.
Okay.
I took a pronghorn 3 years ago at 96 yards. Shot from my knees. I spent 3 hours stalking in on this little booger. Spooked him once. He jumped up, ran for about 60 yards, and then lost me.
Right.
And so I spent another hour and a half crawling, belly crawling, to get into 96 yards of him. And finally, okay, if I get any closer, you're already watching right where I'm at. So I popped up real fast, made sure everything was dialed, perfect draw, perfect release, hit him square. He ran for 70 yards and dropped. And I looked at him, looked back. I'm a little over a mile from the truck. All right, well, that's 65, 70 pounds of meat that I just got to haul out. That's no big deal.
Right.
So
being that close, have you had any other close encounters?
I've had one elk less than 600 yards from the truck, and that was awesome.
Right.
My goal was to hike to the top of the mountain, so I'm busting trees, busting branches, making all kinds of noise, 600 yards from the truck, not even thinking about what was around me. And sure enough, cow elk stood up 30 yards from me. She was bedded down. Well, I mean, if you're here and I'm here and the bow's here and tag's legal, yep, you're done. And so let an arrow fly, and she ran for about 40 and dropped. I looked at her and I looked back, and yep, I could still see the truck, and went, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I've had other, the mule deer 3 years ago was 2.2 miles back and one pack out, 130 plus pounds. Every step hurt.
Man, that's a lot of weight. Yeah. Have you had any scary encounters, like too close?
So that night that I was cutting up that mule deer, I had coyotes within 100 yards of me, which is why it was a single pack out, because I wasn't going to leave anything there. There wasn't any trees that I could hang the meat from. So that was an intimidating event. I dropped her right at dark, and so coyotes were coming out. They could smell the blood. They could smell the meat as I was cutting her up. That was pretty intimidating. I had another event. This was probably almost 20 years ago. I found a wallet up in the woods. Okay, yeah, that's weird. And then about another 50 yards later, I found an old tent and a sleeping bag. And it had been there for a number of years, been sun bleached and wind blown pretty bad. And I don't like this at all, and I'm out of here.
You didn't check it out?
No.
Yeah, that's weird.
It was, I was probably 50 yards from the tent, and I'm looking around going, nah, this doesn't feel right. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Up in Washington State, I smelled something while I was up hunting, something dead. And so let's go figure out what that is. And so I'm following my nose, kind of tracking it. Yep, found an elk calf, halfway eaten. Looking around going, something doesn't feel right. And I look up, and I'm 12 feet underneath a ledge of a mountain lion den.
Mountain lion, yeah.
Ah, you
Damn.
And so back out very slowly. I've hiked into a bear den before, deep in the trees, and yep, this is not where you're supposed to be, you idiot.
Man. That's what I mean. Nature can be so beautiful, but you're just on this innocent stroll, and then all of a sudden it's not so innocent
It's
anymore.
chaos, right?
Man.
Yeah, it's and for me, it's you're an idiot for even getting yourself into here.
Right.
So now figure out how to get yourself out safely.
Yeah.
And it becomes fun, but it becomes a memory too of don't do stupid things because you are out here by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What has been your if you had to highlight one hunt, your most favorite hunt, or the, one you had to work hardest for, just, when you think of hunting and you had to share, your claim to fame story, which one would it be?
I had a cow elk probably 3 years ago. That was a fun hunt. We chased around each other for an hour or better. I was doing some cow calls, and I ended up calling her in. She caught a wind to me, so she ran off for probably 50, 70 yards. But didn't really get scared. And so I kept calling. She tried to circle around me, catch the wind so that she could try to smell me. I just cat and mouse with her for a little over an hour, had a ball. It's interactive because bow season you can be interactive,
right?
Whereas rifle season you can't. So it was fun. Had a similar experience with a pronghorn about 5 years ago. We played for almost 3 hours. He did a full 100 or 360 degree circle around me because I had a decoy up behind me, and he'd talk to me and I'd talk back, and he'd come into about 100 yards, which at the time was just outside of my range. But yeah, for 3 hours just to interact and play with him is not something I'd ever had any type of experience with. Mm-hmm. So it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. It was more work, so therefore it was more rewarding.
I wouldn't even say it was work. I was, at that point, with pronghorn, I was just having fun.
Yeah.
Because I'd never had that type of interaction with him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Well, for anyone local, how would someone get involved in one of your events?
So easy, valorarcherychallenge.com. I've got a June event, June 14th here in a week and a half. Mm-hmm. That's going to be here at Fort Carson. I've got a July event up in Greeley. I've got an August 8th and 9th event down here at Florence, south of Colorado Springs. And then I'm planning an event for October after my hunting season is done. And we're going to see where that one lands. I'm not sure yet. So get signed up, get registered, come out, sling some arrows. We got rental gear. We got coaches. For those that have never shot before, you get to experience it without having to spend a whole bunch of money to buy a bow or equipment. And just come experience what archery can really be.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that analogy of releasing tension. That was cool. But what would you say to someone listening who maybe is struggling right now?
Find your nearest archery range, find your nearest event, and go try it. Mm-hmm. Don't be scared of it. Go to a local range, tell them what your goal is, whether it's bow hunting, whether it's competitions, whether it's archery as therapy, and let them help you figure out what equipment you need. Buy what's in your price range. Don't let them overprice you and buy the most expensive thing, because archery can be a rabbit hole. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. So buy what you can afford, buy what makes sense, and go with what your plan was, right? Whether it's bow hunting or whether it's competitions, stick within that space for near term until you get truly comfortable with it. And then if you want to branch or expand, then go ahead, but start with where you are, build into it from there.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, man.
Absolutely.
From the military to entrepreneurship to hunting and archery, you got quite the story, and I've learned a lot today, so I appreciate you.
I've had a lot of experiences over my lifetime. I'm not done yet, but we'll keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on the Veterans Voice podcast, and thanks for sharing some words to wisdom to our listeners.
Cool.
And we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Sam.
See you.